Hello, I'm William, and this is how I got into MIT by skipping classes. Actually, this story seems very simple from the outside. I practiced hard to improve my programming skills. I qualified for IOI, not the K-pop band, but this prestigious international programming contest, and luckily I was a US citizen, so that gave me an extremely high chance of being admitted to the top colleges in the US. So, where does skipping class come in? When I said I practiced hard, I was not joking. Pretty much every single day of my past 3 years has been either sleeping, eating, exercising, doing schoolwork, or programming. My goal was to maximize the amount of time that I spent programming. I took time off my sleep so that I had more time while still being able to function minimally. I couldn't take time off eating and exercising as those are important. There was only one thing left, and that was schoolwork. The subjects taught in school are pretty important, but only up to middle school and a bit of high school, if you consider the US educational system. Beyond that, however, classes delve too deep into those subjects, which is pointless. More than 90% of what you learn is useless to your future career. I mean, I'll definitely be analyzing Shakespeare or looking at cells under a microscope while I'm developing software. Yeah, that's totally what software engineers do. And you forget most of what you learn in just a few months after your class ends. The time in those classes could be spent on your passion instead. What if you don't have a passion? Some people say that you find your passion by taking classes in high school. But in reality, students just end up learning how to deal with assessments and tests instead of actually finding their passion. So why should you even bother learning these things in school? The answer is you shouldn't. And things just get worse within certain competitive high school environments. Your parents are constantly brainwashed by other parents in the community. Your parents tell you that your one and only goal in high school is to attain the highest grades possible while taking all the honors and AP classes that are available. You also feel the same pressure indirectly from your classmates as well. However, your time is not worth studying for these tests that will never be useful to you in real life. Everyone has much more potential if they choose to put their efforts into the right thing, which is not school, because it focuses on grades way too much. Students are being graded like factory products, as if every student is supposed to be built into the same person. But in reality, everybody is different. There are different kinds of intelligence and talents that are often realized beyond classroom environments. So back to my story. I skipped class in a metaphorical way. I basically multitasked in all classes whenever it was possible. Then I put in minimal effort to complete my homework. In some of my classes, I ended up with the worst grades in my class. But because I studied math and CS so much, math and CS classes were a piece of cake to me, and my overall GPA looked fine. Let's now look at an alternative reality where somehow I didn't get into a comparable university. Well, I'd still already have a decent head start in terms of my career because I chose to spend my time in programming instead of academics. And many companies like Google and Apple don't require you to have a college degree anyways. Overall, I do not regret my lack of effort in schoolwork at all, and I'm confident that I'll never regret it. On the other hand, if I had given in and complied with the school system, I probably would not be able to get into as good as of college even if I had excellent grades. And more importantly, I would not be anywhere close to having the same level of technical skills as I have now. This is when some people come up with the most annoying counterargument that I've heard several times already. Oh, William, this strategy only works for you because you're smarter and more talented. And this is just a pathetic excuse. To explain this, let's consider bodybuilding. Nobody was born looking like a bodybuilder. Like, can you imagine a kid just growing up and simply having massive biceps and six packs? Some people might be stronger than others by genetics, but every ripped person you see out there has had to train hard to look like that. The same idea applies to other fields as well, not just bodybuilding. As I mentioned earlier, I had to train hard for 3 years straight, and that was after I already had 6 years of programming experience. A lot of people don't know about how much effort Olympiad medalists spend, and those people simply assume that they're just much smarter. What this means is hard work and motivation matter a lot for developing passions, and genetics has much less of an effect than people would expect. If a person finds their own talent, they can develop it into something great with hard work. But a lot of people simply don't get a chance to develop their passions, which causes them to think that they don't actually have the potential. And guess why they don't get the chance? School classes are taking up most of their time. I was lucky that I found my passion at a young age of 9, so I had more time to develop it before high school, and I could manage to develop it to an even higher level in high school while not failing my classes. What if someone wanted to develop a passion they discovered much later than I did? Well, too bad for them. They need to stick to the path molded for all students. I know that this isn't going to happen, but ideally, the mandatory high school classes would be easier and more enjoyable. Additionally, colleges would not expect students to take difficult classes in all subject areas, or in other words, be well-rounded. Unfortunately, this is really hard to implement in practice, since judging a student based on their grades and the classes that they take does indeed accurately tell the college about the work ethic of that student. Regardless of whether or not the college admission system is going to change, if both parents and students, no matter from which educational system, would just look further beyond college admissions, then so much more could be achieved in society. For current school students, ask yourself the following questions. Do you think that going to college with a better name is worth wasting 4 years studying subjects, most of which you'll forget after just a few months? Is the college itself better, or is it just the better students that the college admits, which cause the college to appear better? For parents and teachers, you should definitely encourage your child or students to work hard, but you should give some flexibility for choosing their own path in life. In conclusion, although high school does provide important social opportunities, I'm disappointed in the academic part of high school, and I hope that college will be better.